All right, happy Thursday, almost noon, about 11:30 a.m. West Coast time. So Donald Trump called for 6 Democratic members of the House and the Senate to be hanged. So there's that. Active duty members of the United States military are obligated by law to disobey illegal orders from superiors. That is in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. 6 Democratic members of the House and the Senate put out a very thoughtful video together. 4 members of the military, active duty, reminding them of their oath to the Constitution. They took an oath to the Constitution. They did not take an oath to serve one man or woman. And they reminded them of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which legally obligates active duty members of the military to disobey illegal orders. Donald Trump, he's been unhinged for a couple of weeks, but he went particularly unhinged. He said this was sedition, it's treason, it's punishable by death, and basically called for them to be hanged. Active members of the House and the Senate, because they reminded active duty members of the military of the law. And Stephen Miller said this was an insurrection. I saw Mike Davis, a MAGA attorney, I think he's in charge of the pardon office now. He was interviewed by Steve Bannon, and he lost it and said all kinds of horrible things about these members of Congress. And then Todd Blanche was interviewed on like News Nation or something. He's Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney. He did such a good job in that trial that Donald Trump was found guilty of all 34 felony counts that he was charged with. So of course Donald Trump made him the deputy director of the Department of Justice, the number 2 most powerful position. And he said that these members of Congress should be investigated for their intent, and that they can't do this. All 6 of these members of Congress are former military. They're veterans. It included Jason Crow in the House. It included Mark Kelly in the Senate. And they're all former military. They're very familiar with the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They're very familiar with the law. They're familiar with what it is to give and receive orders. And it is entirely appropriate, given what Donald Trump has been trying to do with the military against American civilians over the last 10 months. It's entirely appropriate for them, as sitting members of Congress, as former members of the military, to remind current active duty members of the military what the law is. And the military has its own law, and that is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Following orders does not relieve you of the possibility of prosecution for criminal acts once this president leaves office, or even while he's still in office. Donald Trump is the only person in the executive branch who has immunity from the Supreme Court. Members of the military do not. Members of his cabinet do not. Members of his White House do not. Stephen Miller, Todd Blanche. Donald Trump is the only one that's got immunity. I think it's important for active duty members of the military to be reminded of all of these things. And so, of course, Donald Trump has called for them to be hanged, because he is desperate for people to stop talking about the Epstein files. So he's like, I'll just call for some active sitting members of Congress to be executed. I'm sure he wants it to be done publicly. So Uncle Touchy is having a bad day.